Rich. I run my own, I don't know, I push buttons and provoke people for a living, and sometimes write things down. And I am very, very pleased to be joined by Wendy Harman from the Red Cross. If you don't know Wendy, you should know Wendy, and not just in a situation where you are somehow forced underground into a windowless area. But in the event that you are forced underground into a windowless area due to a tornado or some other cataclysmic event, you absolutely want to know Wendy, because she and her team at the Red Cross mobilize just extraordinary support and education around not just disasters, but definitely notably around disasters. So we're gonna have a little conversation. Okay, so I want to focus on disasters first, partly because I'm sort of obsessed with disasters. What I'm curious about is, aside from the urgency and the time that a catastrophic situation throws into the mix, what makes operating during a disaster situation, before, during, or after, different than the types of day-to-day engagement that you have with people who are connected to the Red Cross, whether those are in your network or on the client side, if you will?
I would say that the goal is for it not to be too different, right? And that's why we have, all of these exercises all the time, and constantly are trying to, form those partnerships and sort of not necessarily bring people into the fold, but have relationships with as many community groups and small businesses, big businesses, anyone who might be part of a community that's affected by a disaster, to already sort of know what those information sharing
sort of normalize the disaster conversations so that they don't seem so anxiety producing or special when the muscle memory needs to kick in.
Right. So the leading indicator of resiliency after a disaster is how socially connected you are with your community. So the cool thing about that is we have an opportunity, and technology, from my point of view, technology allows you to really exploit those relationships or make them really, really easy. But when push comes to shove and there's a disaster, it's always very confusing, and there's always brand new players who want in, and when you're sort of going through the worst moment of your life, or whatever it may be, you tend to also have a very emotional stake in the things that are going on, and it's easy to get really upset or agitated.
So there are presumably a number of different activities related to the work that the Red Cross does, both in and outside disasters, that you can do on your own, that you can own. You can be the experts on something, or you can control the channels that become the most legitimate for getting information out. What are the elements that you can't do on your own, and that you need to coordinate with others, other nonprofit organizations, for-profit, media, government, whatever? What isn't kind of working well in that scenario, right? Like, where are the gaps that if you had expertise or help or capacity from whatever, that would be better, education, preparation, warning, response, rebuilding, like, what are the gaps in the kind of full spectrum of where Red Cross is involved that outside help is needed, essentially?
So I think that's a hard question to answer, because I don't think anybody in the entire space is very good at knowing the whole picture, right? The golden ticket is having a common operating picture and being able to share information and needs with one another. And so, the Red Cross concentrates really, really hard on sheltering and what we call mass care, which is a very strange term for giving people food and supplies that they need. And so we'll be working with large companies and to sort of get pallets and pallets of water to come in a really quick fashion. We already have the their relationships with people who have COTS, and all of those kinds of things that you sort of associate with the Red Cross, and the relationships with all of, the local church, the local community center that become shelters at a moment's notice. All of that has to be sort of set up beforehand, and then when, of course, like I said before, when push comes to shove, there's all kinds of people like, well, that's in the wrong spot, and that's,
And do disasters change, or is the majority, if not the entirety, of your focus on improving the way that you prepare and manage and respond to them, right? Like, certainly tornadoes may get more serious, but it's still the same formula, you just have to do it better, right?
I think so. We try to sort of scale that up, but we're going through a really big change right now where we're trying not to move away from sort of being the organization that comes in and fixes things, and really trying to teach communities how to do it, or enable and facilitate communities doing that themselves, so that it's not like, oh, we're waiting for those people with the vests to come in and hand us a clamshell meal, but we can take steps to be prepared for that up front.
So there's a lot of focus at South by in particular on behavior, right, and wearable technology, and the data that we get from that, et cetera. What does the Red Cross know that the rest of us don't know about human behavior around not just disasters, but also blood collection or whatever, that we would all benefit from knowing, right? You mentioned one that was really interesting, which is the number one indicator of sort of recovering is your social connectivity, right? If you're a loner, the likelihood that you're going to bounce back quickly is clearly not as great as somebody else. So what are some of, or one of the things that the Red Cross, when you look at your data, when you look at your experiences, tells us something about human behavior that other nonprofit organizations or brands might say, that could be game-changing for the way we function and the way we engage as well?
So to me, this is just something that I'm really interested in right now, so I don't know if it's a whole picture thing, but the idea that, it's hard to figure out how to inspire people to take any preparedness action until there's an immediate, imminent threat to them. And to me, I think that's because we've approached it as sort of a fear-mongering thing, like we better do this and get ready for doomsday or whatever, but I think there's a huge opportunity to normalize the activity of preparing, or even just going in and meeting your neighbor, because if we were to concentrate on gathering data about when doing that helps, so telling those success stories after something happens, you almost never see reports or data about when having a kit or having them prepared or having a deal with your neighbor or your loved ones to meet up after something has worked. And so I think not having that and just saying, oh, this weird fear that an unknown tornado or whatever it might be is going to come tear my house down is too scary. It's like someone telling you over and over, you better save money. You don't do it until you know there's a benefit there.
And do you think, sort of as a follow-up on that, do you think that there is, say, a stage in life or a stage in the year when there's more opportunity to embed that knowledge and preparedness? So, like, I have children, so I remember, before I had children, and then I had children, and all of a sudden we had a evacuation plan, and we had to put things into our will, like who gets our kids in the event that something awful happened. You never thought about that because you didn't have to. So are there, moments in sort of people's life trajectory that you guys are looking at to say, maybe this is the moment where the first aid kit makes it into the house, or this is the place, this is the point where you actually, notice that a shelter exists and that this school is a shelter. So in the event of a situation, I don't have to look it up or ask, I know.
Yeah, I think the biggest one of those is the moment that you have children and you sort of feel that need to protect them, and I've seen that. I don't have them myself, but with my friends, that seems to be when that happened. And otherwise, I think it's when, unfortunately, when an event happens, and the closer, either emotionally or in proximity to you, that event did happen, sort of inspires people to be like, oh, maybe I should put a blanket in my car just in case we get stuck out on the road in an ice storm. Those are the two big moments for me.
So the Red Cross over the last, I guess it's been probably almost 10 years now, has pretty significantly changed operationally and has very much embraced technology, social, but most importantly, the sort of war room approach. And not just when you have to, but sort of everybody sits around and crunches data and collaborates at the mothership quite regularly. So, what about that experience do you think is potentially transferable to other organizations, and particularly those that don't have these kind of red alert moments where you have to come together in that command center? What are the elements of your now kind of innovation-driven, solutions-oriented work process that are translatable, that you think, my God, I can't understand how any organization would operate without doing this daily or without doing this as a core part of their function?
Well, I think there's a few things. The first is sort of that marketing or leads generation kind of thing that there's just so much opportunity there to be a good steward, a good community member around the mission and the things that you care about, and sort of bringing people into that fold as an awareness tool. But I'm probably have moved into the space where I'm much more interested in how you optimize the impact you're making on the ground, and how well you're actually including those boots on the ground, maybe connecting the offline and online activity of making an impact in the mission that you're working towards. So for us, and we haven't set it up exactly perfectly. We did the DigiDoc at national headquarters, and it really just happened because that's where we could move the ball. And now we're really decentralizing all of that and inviting all of our chapters to create digital volunteer roles to serve them, and they're building sort of mini DigiDocs. They're not as fancy, but sort of taking all of those activities that we do and bringing them much closer to the ground where we work every day. So, we often have a little bit of an identity crisis still at the Red Cross, in that we don't know if we're a big top-down organization or if we're going to be a grassroots in your community organization. And we try really hard to do both things, and so there's a tension there in every new project that you start about how you'll figure that out. But I think we've made a pretty nice evolution.
And how much of the evolution and the DigiDoc approach is applicable to the things that don't get as much attention? So just take blood drives as an example, right? It would be a fail on behalf of the Red Cross if you weren't able to collect sufficient amounts of blood at times when you're not on the front page or on a cable news channel around. But that, I imagine, is still one of the great struggles, is to get people to engage with the Red Cross outside of those moments. So how has that kind of organizational evolution benefited, or perhaps the opposite, the day-to-day tasks of engagement, as opposed to just optimizing the response to disaster?
So I think that the tools just allow you to see those more holistic conversations that are not necessarily just about the Red Cross or whatever organization you're looking at. So if you take blood drives, we have to get 10,000 arms in the door every day, in order to keep the blood collection going. And so that's an enormous army lift of mobilization across the country, and being able to just sort of make those mini wins of understanding, when there's a fraternity or a sorority house that's bored one day and saying, well, you're 0.8 miles from the nearest blood drive, why don't all of you come in and do that? And it's looking for those opportunities and sort of searches and the posture of the community that you're working in. And that's why I sort of was pointing out the localization of our efforts now, because we can't do that at such a micro level from national headquarters across the country, but those local blood centers and all around the country absolutely can and should.
Two quick questions, then I'll let you go to the airport. We're at South by, which is this extraordinary intersection of creatives and developers and media and investors and all of that. what trends or tools that are being talked about here have the potential to, radically disrupt or benefit the work that you're doing? If everyone had a wearable